What is up, everybody? This is John from No Huddle Fantasy Football back with another video. Today we got part two of the video, my last upload, a year in review. So, last episode, if you didn't catch it, I recommend going back and watching it. But in that video, I kind of went over who I drafted, my wins and losses from the draft. This is the 2024 startup, and then went over a couple things like, my wins and losses, how the season turned out. It was a decent video. Go back and watch it if you haven't. But in this one, I wanted to go over the trades that I've made in the off season, after the season, and my thought process behind everything, why I made these trades, trades that I'm really happy with, trades I wish went a different route, whatever. But starting with the first trade, so I had Jalen Hurts, and like I mentioned before, Jalen Hurts fell to me. I wasn't expecting to draft Jalen Hurts, and so he wasn't somebody on my team that I planned to necessarily build around in my startup drafts. I didn't expect to have him on my team. I didn't even expect to try to trade for him, just knowing how what his value was going to be like. And so I took the opportunity to flip it, because I didn't really have any, I didn't really have any tie to him. I didn't need him on my team. Well, I needed him on my team, but it wasn't like I expected to have him, if that makes sense. And so I didn't have to build my team around him. However you want to say it. But all I'm trying to get at is he wasn't untouchable for me. I was willing to trade him, and so I ended up getting 2 firsts and 2 seconds. When you put that into, let me pull it up. All right. So I ended up trading, my fault, I wanted to pull up Keep Trade Cup, but I ended up trading Jalen Hurts for 2 firsts. One ended up being the 107. Actually, I think it was known at this time that it was the 107. Yeah, it was out of season. 2 firsts and 2 seconds for Jalen Hurts. And if we plug that into Keep Trade Cut, which again, it's all subjective, but they have me winning this trade by a decent bit. So I'm super happy with how this turned out. I'm just gonna put mid first for what it was, and then so they had me winning this by 4,000, which I'm super happy about. And something that I'm happy that I did was I really set the tone. I really set the speed for the league, because there was a couple trades that went through, but nothing crazy. There was nothing that was like mind-blowing. There was no blockbuster trades. There was no one on the trading block, and so I added some of my best players onto the trading block, and then one of them being Jalen Hurts. There was no one else on the trading block, so I really announced it to my league that if you want something, come get it. You know what I mean? Pause. But I really set the tone. I really set the pace, and I think that's why I was able to pull off a couple of these trades, because no one was really doing this. And so if I give you some advice, don't be afraid to make trades. And not every trade is going to come to you. Sometimes you're going to have to go get it. So I'm super happy with how this turned out, because now I have a lot of capital to work with. And I ended up, I think literally 10 minutes after, I ended up flipping I had 2 picks now, because I had my pick and then I had that one. And I ended up flipping AJ Brown, the 105, and DK Metcalf for Jalen Waddle, Caleb Williams, and a 2026 first. And I mentioned in my last video, but I was really high on Caleb Williams, and there was a point where I was gonna take him at the 1-7, but Jalen Hurts dropped me, so I had to take Jalen Hurts. But to get Caleb Williams, I was super happy, because that's who I wanted, and I get to buy him for a little bit cheaper. But when we throw this into the calculator, and again, you could say what you want about Keep Trade Cut, but I think it's a decent tool, and I think it's helpful to really just put a value Um, so I'm gonna do mid. I do mid first for all my future first, just because you don't know necessarily. And so they have this leaning towards this side, the DK AJ Brown side. But I did need a quarterback, and I was super, super high on Caleb Williams. This is after the Ben Johnson. They hired Ben Johnson, so I just knew. I knew they wouldn't do that for a reason. I'm buying into that Bears offense, and I wanted my share in Caleb Williams. And if you notice, I stacked another 2026 first because. I was just stacking assets, right? I wanted to corner that side of the market before anybody else got a chance to. And so now, seeing Michael Penix was named the starter at the end of the season, I knew that we were going into next season with him. He's gonna be the starter. There's no need to panic. And so I ended up trading Jared Goff, a 2025 third, and my first. So I had no first this year. For a 26 first, a 27 first, a 25 second, and a 26 third. The 26 third, it's whatever, but the 25 second, the 26 first, and the 27 first, especially at 27, super excited to get these. Again, I was just stacking value. I was trying to get assets and essentially currency within Dynasty football. You can't use real money, but picks are essentially money within the game. And so I just wanted currency to be able to play with. And so I'm super happy with how this played out. I'll put this into the calculator to see what this looks like. And maybe I gave up too much in terms of this year, like he gets a lot of weapons now, but I still think I made out pretty well with this trade. So again, they had me winning by a couple thousand. So super happy with how this played out. And again, I'm just stacking assets that I can use for whatever I want, essentially, because anybody, especially the 2027, there's already hype brewing for that. I'm excited for 2026, and I'll probably make videos on 2026, but the hype for 2027, I could flip this for a bet that'll help me win alone. You know what I mean? And so I'm super, super happy with how this trade played out. And again, Michael Penix steps up. So again, I'm going into this season with two quarterbacks. If one gets injured, I'm kind of screwed, but I'm not too worried. Both young. But we'll see what happens. Knock on wood here. Here's my next trade. I got Xavier Worthy, and this one I didn't even send out. This one was sent to me from Nico's in Paris, and he wanted my 205, my 207, and my 204 for Worthy and the 201. So let's plug that into the calculator. This one I am super, super happy that I got Xavier Worthy. And I remember, this was right before the Super Bowl, I believe. And yes, he did get all those points in garbage time. But at this point in time, somebody offered me a first and a second for Worthy. And, maybe I should have took it. But I was high on Worthy, and I really like his play style. And Pat Mahomes had that connection with Tyreek Hill, and why can't they repeat that? So that's why I really liked. I saw this trade come in. I didn't even send a counter. I just took it. I was trying to get Kenneth Walker, but he ended up coming back with this, and so super happy with how this played out. And Xavier Worthy, I think he's a great piece to have on a team. People act like there's not, two wide receivers can't coexist. And I think him and Rashee Rice are the perfect duo. Even the new wide receiver Royals, I think Worthy is like that difference maker. That yeah, Rice and Royals are big target hogs and they'll take a lot of targets, but they were scheming up plays for Xavier Worthy since game one. So they have trust in him, and now him and Pat Mahomes have had a year to build, a relationship together, a wide receiver to quarterback relationship, quarterback to wide receiver relationship. And, I think that connection downfield is going to be, a difference maker this year. And so I'm excited to see how this plays out. He's going to be a starter for me, and I'm super excited to have him on the team. And so this next trade, I was trying to get a trade done with Aaron Rodgers' friends, my guy Tyler. And at the time, he had Pat Mahomes on his team, and I had both Rice and Xavier Worthy. And so I was trying to send him these big, you're going to be the only team in the league that has a triple stack. Like, this is going to be the difference maker for you. Like, you're going to dominate. And so I was trying to get some blockbuster trades, get 2 firsts, Rome Odunze and Charbonnet. And, I think, honestly, like, look at here. He offered me a first and a third. He offered me a first and 2 seconds. I probably should have taken this one. Honestly, in hindsight, I probably should have taken this one. Amari Cooper, no, I wasn't going to do that one. But this one I probably should have taken. This is, who would I think I would have gotten RJ Harvey there, whatever. Just value-wise, it would have been smart for me to take it, but I was high on Xavier Worthy. And this was during the Super Bowl when he was having that monster game. And so I just wanted to toy with him and keep declining. I sent him 2 firsts for Worthy. He declined that, obviously. But really, I think he got tired of trying to trade with me, because this is what we ended up doing. He ended up sending me Rome Odunze and his 210 for Rashee Rice. And so when we plug that into the calculator, this is one of my favorite trades that I made, because Rashee Rice, again, I drafted him in the 7th round last year, and oddly enough, Tyler drafted Rome Odunze in the 4th. So now I get a 4th round talent for someone I drafted in the 7th round plus a 2nd rounder. So I'm super happy with this one. And then I have that stack now with Caleb Williams and Odunze. And I'm super high on that Bears offense. I think it's going to do great. But, they had me winning this trade by, 1,500 or so. So again, I'm super, super happy with how this trade played out. And yeah, I'm really high on Rome Odunze, and I'm excited to see how he progresses this season. So here's just a random trade. I got Dontavian Wicks for a 26th third. You know, Wicks has some good separation stats. Nothing too crazy. And a 2026 third at the end of the day is like not a dart throw. You could get some good players, good value in the third round of rookie drafts, but I just like having more depth at the wide receiver position, especially if I could add him, you know, especially if he goes off for a game or two. I could add him as a piece to get, you know, a second round pick or something. Then next, you know, I have Tony Pollard on my team. So I sent Brian a 2026 second for Tajay Spears. I think Spears could very well be the next starter. You know, I mean, once Pollard's out, Spears next guy up, and if Pollard gets injured, like he did last season, Spears stepped up and did great, you know. And so I got high hopes for Spears, and then I also had that handcuff. And at this point in time, I'm going to still say 2026 mid first, because I'm not going to, or mid second, excuse me. So I'm not going to overhype my team and say I'm going to win championship, but you know, they're saying I give too much value here. I'd say maybe I did, but I received so much extra value from the assets that I did, or you know, the assets that I got and the trades that I won, that I felt comfortable, you know, overpaying slightly for certain things. And now I get a handcuff to Tony Pollard. So I'm more than happy to send the 2026 second for that. So next trade. So keep in mind, my starters right now are for running back are Tony Pollard and, Tony Pollard and Javonte Williams at running back. Maybe Jalen Warren, if you watch my startup or my year in review going over the startup draft. So I knew I needed something better. I sent out my 201, which was actually his pick originally, and a 27 third for Kenneth Walker. And I'm really hoping that Walker has a bounce back year. I think he is a great player. He was getting drafted in the third round of startups last year. Now he's in like the 7th round or the whatever it is. And so I may be even overpaying for the even trade. I win by 200, whatever. It's even. And this ended up being Cam Scatterboo. So I'd much rather have Kenneth Walker than Cam Scatterboo. You know, you could be on either end of that equation. But that's just, you know, that's just how I feel. So again, super happy with that. I now have a starting running back. Some people may say that he's not the RB1. I think he could very well have a bounce back year, and I'm excited to see what he does. Then I ended up sending the 210 and my 405 for Charbonnet to get, you know, the handcuff for my newly traded for Kenneth Walker. So here I think they have the value in favor of him, which I wasn't afraid of overpaying at all. I just wanted my backup, you know. And he probably could have squeezed out a little bit more value out of me. But he won this trade, and I wanted to send him something that I knew I was going to get, and there was no back and forth for this one. Yeah, I'm super happy. So now I have the backup for Tony Pollard and Kenneth Walker. And both backups aren't just, you know, backups. They're backups with serious upside if something happens to, you know, either starter. And so again, it's saying I lost in value here, but I'm not. My value didn't lie in the picks. It lied in the backups. And so at this point in time, I was completely out of the 2025 rookie draft. And some people, they don't like to be out of rookie drafts entirely, but here's where stacking your chips like I did all offseason come into play. I tried to make some moves to get back into it, but finally here's the move that I ended up making. So I traded Jalen Warren and a 2026 first, who, by the way, this is, you know, Jeremy's team is crazy. He traded for the 101, you know, way back in the middle of the season, before people knew it was the 101. And now his running backs are Bijan and Ashton Genty. He has Puka. He's got CJ Stroud. I traded him Jalen Hurts, so he's probably the winner. Honestly, if I'm just being honest, if I had to put, you know, if I had to put my house on who's going to win, I'm going to put Jeremy just because of how strong his team is. And so I can confidently say, or at least with somewhat confidence say that this is going to be the 110, 111, 112. End of the first round. I still have 3 of my other first round picks, and Jaylen Warren, who I don't think is going to be that big of a factor. Had they not drafted Caleb Johnson, 100%, I'm not trading Warren. He's going to be the RB1. But they drafted Caleb Johnson. He's a workhorse. He's decent in the pass game. That's all Jaylen Warren's good at is pass game. I mean, he's good at running, but he was a backup to Najee for a reason, and now they drafted what could be argued is a better version of Najee. So essentially, I view Warren as a backup. So I'll throw this into the trade calculator. I'm going to say late first with this because I'm confident in that. And I ended up getting the 206, the 211, and a 2027. I'll do mid-third. And so they got even trade here. But the real reason why I traded into this, I actually tried to trade with a couple people beforehand. I don't know if you can see, but I actually tried to trade with a couple people before this trade. But my guy ended up dropping all the way to 206. I was trying to get, the 203, and then I ended up not having to trade until the 206. So I'm super happy with how this dropped, but at the 206 I ended up picking Luther Burden, right? And there's some concerns, off the field issues, soft tissue issues, whatever you want to say. But I got Caleb Williams, I got Rome Odunze. That team has Ben Johnson. Even if Luther Burden doesn't perform this year, my wide receiver room is so stacked to where I'm more than happy to put him on the bench to see how that progresses and that plays out, to where I can have a crazy stack between Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, and Luther Burden, So I really just got that to see how it plays out. And then with the 211 and the 2027 third, I ended up trading that to CD's nuts. I'm Bill. I ended up sending him the 211 and my 2027 third that I just got from my friend Connor for his 209, and at the 209 I ended up getting Jack Besh. So when we look at it this way, and we take out these and we put in Jack Besh, and Luther Burden, this is what I ended up with. And I think the stack here is really, I'm high on Jack Besh. I think he's going to be a dog. And Luther Burden, I think he could be an absolute stud if he really puts in the work. But really, it was a late first that's burning a hole in my pocket. Jaylen Warren, who is more than likely going to be the backup, who has 1 year left on his contract, for 2 rookies that could be potentially stars, right? That, Luther Burden especially dropped when, in the middle of the summer, or excuse me, it's the middle of the summer now, in the middle of the offseason, people were saying he was a first round rookie pick, and he dropped all the way to the 206, so I had to get him. And then because of my lack of tight ends, I ended up sending my 2026 third from Jeremy. I'm editing this now, and I heard that I said 2026 third. I meant 2026 second. Just wanted to clear that up. So again, this is probably going to be the 212 for the 303, and I picked up Mason Taylor with that. And I'm super happy with that because I needed a tight end. He's more than likely going to be starter from day one at the Jets, and it just fills a need. Because I don't know how long Jonnu Smith's going to be there. Mason Taylor at least has a couple years of production that's at least startable. It's better than nothing. Going into the season, I had Jonnu Smith and AJ Barner. And AJ Barner on the Seahawks, they actually drafted 2 tight ends, but they drafted Arroyo in the second round. So you can't really trust him to be a solid backup. So I had to get Mason Taylor. Um, and then here I ended up trading my 2026 third for the 411. And some people could call me stupid for this, but I ended up drafting Oronde Gadsden. And, I am fine paying that 2026 third round price tag for Gadsden because I really think he's going to be worth way, way more than that. If you listen to his draft call from Harbaugh, he said that he has a role for him instantly. And they have Tyler Conklin and Disley on that team, but Gadsden, if you look at his stats, he did better than Tyler Warren in college. And he didn't play in the hardest division, but he didn't play in the easiest division. What's his name from Bowling Green, who broke records, but you went to Bowling Green. He went to Syracuse. He played, decent teams, and put up some really good numbers and some really good, production. So I'm excited to see how he's used in that Chargers offense, and I think he could be, a good piece. But yeah, just super, super excited. And yeah, so that was the last trade I made. So let's look at my team now. So on my team, my starters are Caleb Williams, Kenneth Walker, Tony Pollard, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Jonnu Smith, Xavier Worthy, Rome Odunze, Jalen Waddle, Michael Penix. This is off season and we're allowed to have, my league doesn't have a taxi squad. We just have 30 roster spots right now, but come season time, we have to have 26 or 24, either one of those numbers. But so my QB3 is Joe Milton, which, I'm high on Joe Milton. If something happens to Dak, he could be great, right? And he could be the next star. Manungai, that RB room is somewhat open. So I'm excited to see what he could do. Taj Brooks, similar situation. I think Chase Brown is great though. But Taj Brooks really did some good numbers in college, and so did Kyle Manungai. 1,200 yards back-to-back years in the Big Ten, one of the hardest divisions, and he never fumbled in over 700 carries. That's insane. So I could see him being a starter. I'm not gonna lie. Phil Maffa, he's 6'1", 225. I just think if anybody beats out Javonte Williams, I think Phil Maffa honestly has a better chance than Jaden Blue, just because Jaden Blue's tiny, and Phil Maffa, he could have a role being that goal line back and take up all the touchdowns just because he's 6'1" and a beast. Kareem Hunt, he signed a 1-year deal. A lot of these guys are expendable right now. I'm still trying to weed through and try to pick who I should get rid of. Zach Moss, I have Taj Brook and Zach Moss now. I might be able to get some value out of the Chase Brown owner by sending them as handcuffs for him, but who knows with Zach Moss with the neck injury. He's playing with he's in the injured tent at OTAs or whatever. And Javonte Williams could easily be the starter and could easily have comeback player of the year, and get back to his rookie year shape. You know what I mean? Dameon Pierce, I have no idea what to do with him. They just added Nick Chubb too, so it's like if they don't trade him, he's borderline droppable. But I think they're going to trade him. I'd love to see him go to Washington. I think that would be a great fit for him as well as fit for me, because I'd love to see him be the starter there. But who knows with him? But he did have a massive rookie season, so you got to hold out to hope. And I got him in the late round, so it's a dart throw at this point. Then we got Tajay Spears and Charbonnet, my 2 handcuffs. Super happy with them. And then my bench wide receiver, I got Malik Washington. There was some hype surrounding around him, especially with Tyreek Hill leaving. I was super hyped when I heard Tyreek Hill was leaving, because at that point in time I had Jalen Waddle from that trade. I thought I was in for a super crazy year, and he very well could still leave, but it doesn't look that way right now. Roman Wilson, excited to see what he can do, especially with Aaron Rodgers. I think he could be a great weapon for Aaron Rodgers. If you watch his college tape, he just knows how to get open. He just knows where to be. He knows how to beat zone. Like he's really good at that. And I think Aaron Rodgers, if they build a connection, they're going to be able to, take that to the next level. Keon Coleman, same thing. They're not same thing, but Keon Coleman, I'm excited to see what he can do. I had some rookie fever. I took him over a couple guys like Terry McLaurin in my startup draft, but I'm still excited to see how he can progress. He still is tied to Josh Allen. He is that big body frame. Would love to see him take a step forward in progression next season. Here's one of my rookies, Jack Besh. Super excited to see what he can do. I think he's playing with a lot of heart because of the situation that happened with, his brother in New Orleans. Rest in peace. It's tragic, but, when people have something to play for, they're going to really play passionately, and that's why I think Jack Besh is going to do big, big things in the NFL. Luther Burden, some off-field problems, soft tissue injuries, but at the end of the day, he is my wide receiver, 6 or 7 on the team. I don't really know, but I'm not upset with that, and I would love to see, even if he gets outshined by DJ Moore this year and even next year, I think within 2-3 years, this pick will be worth it for me. And like I said, if I only had one 2026 first, maybe I would have been overpaying by sending that first and Jaylen Warren to get Jack Besh and Luther Burden. But I still have 3 in my back pocket, and that's going to be what I suspect to be, 112. So I'm not too worried that my return on investment isn't going to be good. Then we got Tolbert, who he's borderline droppable at this point. Dontavian Wicks, who's just a depth guy. AJ Barner, borderline droppable, but it's interesting because AJ Barner, I'm not too sure what tight end university has to do with fantasy or how much of an impact it plays, but I do think it's interesting that he got invited to tight end university and Arroyo didn't. But you see other second round tight ends like Mason Taylor, he got invited. So it's interesting to see. Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's not. Maybe I'm just coping. Whatever. Then I got Gadsden and Mason Taylor. And then if we look at my draft picks, I got 3 firsts in 2026, a 4th in 2026. I got 2 firsts in 2027, a 2nd, a 4th, and then all my picks in 2028. And so, I like to say that I reloaded my team. You could sit here and think that my team, if you watch my original video from last year, is better than this one. But I do truly think that with the moves that I made with this team, I set myself up to perform now. I have a chance that this team, especially if Javonte Williams comes back to shape, if Kenneth Walker comes back to shape, Manunga is announced starters, Joe Milton becomes a starter and goes off. I have a chance to where, Kareem Hunt plays like he did last year. Luther Burden ends up being great. Jack Besh ends up being great. Keon Coleman takes a step. If all goes to plan, my team can be a sneaky competitor. And I think I am flying under the radar because of my youth and because of, my projection. It says my projection. I don't know if it says it here anywhere. I don't know if I'm just blind, but I think they have me projected 130 for week 1, and there's teams that are projected 149, 147. And so I'm really flying under the radar in terms of projection, but there are some heavy hitters on my team that could really, come alive. Like Drake London, tied to Michael Penix. His week 18 performance, he dropped 40 points. You know what I mean? And yes, it is week 18. And Michael Penix had 2 weeks before that he wasn't, the best. He wasn't lights out, you know what I mean? But it was his first 2 games in the NFL. Give the kid a break. And so, you look at that last game, he almost dropped 30 points. That's 70 points between the 2 of them, right? Then I got Romo Dunze, who I hope takes a step forward. Caleb Williams, who I think is going to take a step forward. Kenneth Walker with a bounce back. Garrett Wilson could be a heavy hitter. Xavier Worthy has, he could drop 30 points, any given week. And so that's why I love having Xavier Worthy in my flex, because he's not going to be someone that, I necessarily want to start in my wide receiver 1 or my wide receiver 2 every week. But the weeks that he goes off, he's probably going to be the reason I win, So I'm happy to have him. Jalen Waddle's just, a depth piece. Jonnu Smith, he could be a heavy hitter. Jalen Waddle, they said in OTAs that he's looking great. So he could go back to that, the wide receiver, when him and Tyreek Hill were both eating, he can now outperform Tyreek Hill. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And then, like I said before, if Javonte Williams becomes a RB1, which I think he can, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does, I'm set. And not necessarily set, but with my draft picks, to where, let's just say I start out 6-1, 7-1, 6-2, 7-2, whatever I start out with, I could feel comfortable sending these out to teams that are, losing, especially this one or this one, because they're mine and they're going to be late if I have that record, and get some studs for my team to help me win the championship. And this is what I mean by, like, I set myself up for the future, but I still can compete now.
One final thing before I put an end to this video. So when you look at my team breakdown on Keep Trade Cut, they have a league power ranking where you put in, I'm on Sleeper, but I think they have a couple other leagues that they work with, but you put in your Sleeper league ID and it breaks down per team, just power rankings, right? And so if we take a look at that, let me go full screen for you guys. When you look at full team plus picks, right, which is what I set myself up with, they got me ranked number 1. This is AI, that's me. And they had me at a 99 overall with, full team picks included. Now, when we just do the team, the player only, they got me at 7th, which is middle of the pack, right? It's not awful by any means, but I'm not top 3. And Stroud 9, that's the 2026 first that I sent away. So even they have him as the number 1 ranked team. And look, he's number 1 in QB, number 1 in running back, he's upper 50% in wide receivers. So that's why I felt comfortable sending that pick away. But yeah, so I'm middle of the pack. If things go my way and people take a step forward in progression, I can definitely, see myself rise from 7 to the middle of this, 3, 4, even, 2, whatever. And because of my capital, I could then, make moves to, fill out roster spots on my team with people that are going to give me, wide receiver 1, running back 1 production numbers. And so they had me ranked number 1 in wide receiver, number 1 in picks. So that's really, leaning the scales in my favor. But, it's just the moves I made, and it's the direction I wanted to put my team in. And so, I'm happy that you guys are coming along for the ride with me. And I'm excited, to see what I do with these 2026 picks, and just for this 2025 season in general. With that being said, I don't have much else to say. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you find this type of content, watchable at least. I know it's, a longer video, and I want to keep them somewhat short, but not every video is going to be like this. So if this video is for you, subscribe, stick around, leave a like. And if not, I'm going to have shorter, buy, sells content, content on like sleepers, 2026 rookie class, things like that are going to be shorter if you have the attention span of a squirrel. But if you enjoy content like this, I will be coming out with something like this every now and then. And yeah, I'm happy you guys are coming along for the ride with me. They got me ranked as a 99 overall. I'm not trying to brag or nothing, but that was all me. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I want to thank you for stopping by, for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Any video ideas you want to see, leave them in the comments. And yeah, that's all from me. So I will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.